Hello everybody, so today we're going to be going through a complete login flow using AWS Amplify for Flutter. Now the code here isn't going to be anything sexy, but it's going to be fully working and something that you can definitely implement and take further in your own application. So this is the app that we're going to end up with. It's just going to be logging in and confirmation code on the same page, but the function is going to be good and you can expand it, make it look a little prettier yourself. So let's get right into it. So I'm gonna assume you already have an AWS Amplify account. If you don't, you just kind of follow the steps, create one, and you get to this screen. And here you'll be able to either search for AWS Amplify, or for me it showed up in recents. Here's a little window we have, and if we click Get Started, I think it should let us create an app. We'll call it Flutter App, confirm deployment, and then this takes a little while for it to set up. So let's wait till that's done. And actually, while we're waiting, there's going to be another prerequisite actually, and it's having Amplify CLI set up. So to do that, check out this guide, prerequisites in the Flutter documentation for Amplify. I'll have links for all this in the description. But here, yeah, you need to create an AWS account and then install and configure the Amplify CLI. To do that, you just do, I don't know, the instructions are pretty clear to install it. And then once you have that, once this finishes setting up, then we can get to the next step. And one more thing we can cover while we're waiting for this to finish is the starter project. So this is what it's going to look like. So this starter app is a little bit more complex than some of the other starter apps I have, but that's because it's using Riverpod and kind of the template that I go with working for projects. If you're a little confused about this template, I have multiple Riverpod videos below in the description. So make sure to check those out and hopefully this will make more sense. But we have the main file that runs your actual app. And before we get any further, the way I approach the starter project is it's like the complete app, but with nothing with AWS implemented yet. And we're gonna do the implementing of AWS together. So we have a file called AWS Auth, which will have all the authentication functions that we need. We're gonna need to retrieve the user. We're gonna need to sign the user up. We're gonna need to confirm that he signed up. We're going to sign in, and then we're gonna need to log out. And all this is gonna be using a provider, and we'll be able to access this throughout our app using Riverpod. Then in our app, we have where initialization should happen for Amplify. And then depending on where and what situation we're in, we're going to go to different screens, either login, homepage, splash page, or login page. And that's the whole starter project. So we can ignore the error page, we can ignore the splash page. We're going to be mostly working with the login page and a little bit on the home page when we sign out. But the main things we're going to have to fill in is this initialization of Amplify, and then each of these functions and how they work with Amplify. So all right, if we go back, our project is done. So the way you initialize your project, go to your admin UI, which is kind of like our Firebase console if you're used to Firebase. And this is what it looks like. Here we have data, authentication, functions, user management, all that stuff. So to set it up within your project, click this local setup. There'll be Amplify pull, app ID, and environment name. You can copy that into your terminal, and then if we bring this up, hopefully you figured out how to install the Amplify CLI, but now you should be able to have the Amplify command here, and then we can paste this in here and let it run. It'll first launch up the screen to have us sign in. I'm going to copy paste this into my Chrome because I'm already logged in on here, so it'll just be easier. Yes, we want to log in with the CLI. So we've successfully logged in, and we have some issues. All right, I guess I had to update my own CLI as well. So you just do that by the same command that we saw up there, npm ig AWS Amplify CLI. So that updates your CLI as well as adds it in, I'm pretty sure. So, all right, now that we got that done, let's choose our default editor, Visual Studio Code. We're building in Flutter. Where do you want to store your configuration file? In the lib folder is fine. Do you plan on modifying? Yes, we do. And then there we go. So now we have added it into our own project. You'll see two new folders. There'll be an Amplify folder. We'll have some of your Amplify stuff, the configurations. We won't need to touch that in this tutorial, but then we have an Amplify configuration, which is our actual Amplify configuration like it sounds. So there's one main concept to remember with AWS Amplify It's that you have a local environment and then you have your cloud environment. And to sync them up, you need to push and pull your environment depending on where you are. So here we're going to add Amplify Auth, add Auth. And actually, before we do that, we need to add on our packages. These are our two packages we're going to need, Amplify Flutter and Amplify Auth Cognito. So if we bring those in, run pub-get. And then now we should be able to amplify add auth to our project. Run that command. We're just going to use a default configuration. We're going to use email. And that's it. We're done. So now it has configured authentication on our local system. So we want to do amplify push to have it sync up with our database over here, with our cloud environment as well. So do you want to create an authentication in the AWS cloud? We do. So we run that, let it update resources in the cloud. All right, so here we go. We have all our resources updated in the cloud, and I think we're all set up and ready to get to the actual code. So we have our configuration. Now we need to initialize this configuration within our app so that we can use it. And we're going to do that inside this configure amplify function. I'm going to remove that useless comment. So this gets called on our init state, right when our app gets created. Then in here, we can await with amplify, add plugins. Even though we only need one, we could probably use the add plugin, but we want to add the Amplify Auth Cognito plugin. So once that's added in, we want to also do the actual configuration. We do amplify.configure, and then we use this actual Amplify configuration that we have that Amplify created for us. So every time you update, you add all the stuff here. This gets updated to include whatever you need. So if all this stuff works well, we don't have any exceptions here, we can set the state that Amplify is configured. And then once it's configured, we have a consumer listening to our auth user provider. Now, if you don't understand what I'm talking about here, definitely watch the Riverpod video. So basically, this consumer allows you to watch the data that we have provided to the rest of our application. And we did that using this user provider. So this consumer allows you to watch that data pretty much. So in this provider, we can see that we're returning the user. And here, for now, the user is going to be null, but we're going to implement that and then it should work accordingly. All right, so we could run this app now, see what it looks like. And then the last step, which is the main step of this whole part, is actually implementing these features. All right, so last step, you can see it takes us right to the login screen because there's no user because we're just returning null. But let's now retrieve the user from AWS Amplify. We can call them AWS user, and we do that by amplify auth get current user, and then we want to await it so that we actually get the user, and then you should be able to get their user ID, that's what we're going to be providing here. So now if you save it, nothing should happen here because we still don't have a user, so user ID should be null. All right, so let's get into signing the user up. This one's also pretty simple. Amplify auth sign up. Here we'll have a username and a password. Our username is going to be the email that we pass in, and the password is going to be the password that we pass in. But there's one more field that's required here, and it's an options field. So the options field is going to be filled in with a Cognito sign up options. We're just going to call it options and Cognito sign up options. We're going to need some user attributes, and these user attributes are going to be email, and we're going to pass in the email as well there. So this stuff is just some extra things you need to do with Firebase Amplify, I think, because you can have the username not be an email, so then you still need to have their email somehow, but it's just one extra step. It should work just fine. Now the last two are very similar to this Amplify auth sign up, but we will do await, amplify auth confirm sign up, and here we'll need the username, which is the email, and then confirmation code, which will be the confirmation code. And all these will be passed in for us from these text fields. Let's implement the last two. They're also very similar. Amplify auth sign in, username is email, password is password, log out is also very similar, sign out. All right, so that's it. That should be pretty much implemented. Let's test it out. Just put in an email, tadas@tadaspetra.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a very secure email. So again, you probably want to make sure the UI doesn't show a login button before you even signed up. But we click sign up. We can go over here to see our users, hopefully. Yes, there we go. So the user's there. We will have received an email in our inbox. If we refresh, verification code 336257. Copy, paste that into here. That doesn't work. But 336257 is the verification code. We can confirm that sign up. And again, real beautiful UI. Doesn't give you any feedback, but it is confirmed. We can refresh this. You see the status was unconfirmed. And if we reload the screen, it should say confirm now. So all this stuff is happening behind the scenes. And then we could log in and brings this to our home screen. There we go. And then sign out just the same. Now we can log in again. This time we don't need to confirm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Log in. We get to the home screen. Everything's working just like it should. UI could be cleaned up a little bit, but the logic is there. All right, so that's it. Let me walk through it one more time just to make sure you didn't miss anything. First, we're going to set up the CLI in order to be able to initialize and add our features from AWS to our project. Then we can open up an admin UI where we could see what we're doing. Using the CLI, we can add authentication. We can push and pull environments to and from the cloud. And another thing, like we pushed our authentication, but you can easily set the stuff up in here. So let's say we want to add some data modeling here. We'll do that in another video, but with authentication, we could also update here. Let's say we want to add multi-factor authentication or another login mechanism. We can do that in the actual console. And then here we'll have to just pull it in and we'll have it all update. So that was configuring AWS Amplify. Then we had to add in our dependencies. Once those dependencies are added in, we get two new things. We get this Amplify configuration file, and we get this Amplify folder. Then we get to initialize Amplify. For this, we're only using Auth Cognito. And then lastly, implement all our functions. And there we have a complete login using AWS Amplify. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Hopefully I will explain this RiverPod setup a little bit, but that wasn't the main point of the video. The main point was to show how AWS Amplify works. But if you're confused about, or at least wondering about the RiverPod setup, there's gonna be videos probably linking to that stuff, especially in the description. So take a look at that. And you'll see having this type of setup makes it really easy to add in different things. Like we only had to touch 2 files, keeps things very organized. I really like it. And then we just implemented this Amplify authentication, and that was pretty much it. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and see you next week.